Our first example of a major contradiction in the Bible would be that of the death of Judas and what he did with the silver he received as payment for his betrayal of Jesus. Matthew 27 verses 5 and 6 tell us Judas threw the silver and hung himself, and later on the chief priests took the silver and bought a field with it. Then in Acts 1 verse 18 we read that Judas spent the silver to buy a field and then fell to his death in it. Even a child can understand that these are two entirely different sequences of events. Both scenarios cannot be simultaneously true, yet both contradictory accounts appear in the Bible. A second example of a major contradiction within the Bible would be the accounts of the people at the tomb of Jesus. In Mark's account, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and a woman called Salome show up at the unguarded tomb only to find that the tomb has been opened. They enter it to find it empty and meet a young man inside, presumably an angel, who tells them Jesus has risen. In Matthew's account, we read that the two Marys show up at the tomb, this time without Salome, and Matthew's account includes details of an earthquake, frightened Roman guards, and an angel who rolled away the stone covering the tomb. The women are then informed by the angel about the resurrection of Jesus. In Luke's account, the two Marys show up at an opened and unguarded tomb to encounter not one but two angels who tell them about the resurrection of Jesus. Now, despite these discrepancies in details, the events at the tomb according to Mark, Matthew, and Luke contain more or less the same sequence of events. However, John's account contains a completely different sequence of events. It tells us that only Mary Magdalene found the tomb open and empty, and then returned to Peter and another disciple to tell them what she saw. The two disciples then run into the tomb and discover the linen with the burial cloth lying folded separately. Following this, the disciples return home, and Mary Magdalene wept at the tomb before meeting two angels. And then Jesus himself shows up and tells her to inform the disciples that he is going to ascend to God. The fact that the Gospel authors were unable to produce a unified account of the resurrection of Jesus only demonstrates that the Bible cannot be fully relied upon for other matters regarding the life of Jesus. Then, Paul's encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus is another example of a major biblical contradiction. The Bible records three contradictory statements from Paul as to what actually happened. In Acts 9, we read that Paul, then known as Saul, was struck by a light spoken to by Jesus and lost his sight for 3 days. Saul had fallen down while his companions stood speechless. His companions heard a voice but saw nothing. Then, in Acts 22, Paul says he fell down, his companions saw a light but heard nothing, and no mention is made of Paul's loss of sight, which was a very important detail. Then in Acts 26, Paul says both he and his companions fell down, he heard a voice, and Paul's loss of sight is once again not mentioned. Now, many Christians have spotted other discrepancies and contradictions between Paul's teachings and those of Jesus, but that, I feel, makes for a separate topic. There are so many other contradictions in the Bible, but it would be tedious to go over them all in this one video, so I feel these examples should suffice. The fact that we have all these contradictions in the Bible indicate that the writers of the Bible were not sure of a lot of things, and this raises a lot of questions regarding the integrity of the Bible. Thank you for listening.